And we're live.
All right. Welcome, everybody, to another episode of the Wide Wednesday podcast. I'm Sovereign.
And I'm Shiny.
And a lot of Marvel stuff today, and a lot of stuff to talk about. One of our neighbors,
Yeah, our northernmost neighbor.
our less desirable neighbors.
But first, let's talk about Marvel. So I want to start out with the smaller one being, let's talk about Moon Knight.
All right. So this new trailer that's come out really unveils a lot, and not just from the trailers too. A lot of outside media has come out about the series as a whole.
Yeah, a lot of them are talking about basically just how the show is going to be very dark, like how they're going to be very brutal. Is the term they used a lot was brutal.
Yeah.
And I mean, in the picture in Empire, which one of the two, we have one of them up on screen, but the other, which we have linked in the description, shows Moon Knight. His knuckles are bloody, which is, I mean, in the grand scheme of things, is like pretty tame. But when you think about how Marvel usually advertises things, a character with like visible amounts of blood on them is pretty out of the ordinary, to say the least.
Yeah, definitely, sure. And also, touching base on the Empire, the stuff that Empire has revealed to us, their magazine cover shows us the entire costume in full and complete detail. And I just want to repeat this again. Thank God they didn't go for pure whiteness to it, and that it's all bandaged up.
Yeah.
Looks really like just unclean.
Yeah, I definitely agree. My favorite actually is, though, my favorite costume is the one we have on screen, which is the suit. I like it, especially if it's made the same way as his regular Moon Knight costume is made. Just imagining it all coming together and just coming in as to a suit instead of your normal, just like mummy wrappings, I think would be pretty cool.
Now, I'd love to find out like how this is relevant to anything. But then again, we are dealing with a superhero
With DID.
With DID.
So, yeah, that makes sense. That they would have many. I would wonder if this is a different altar from the Moon Knight altar.
Yeah,
That's what I'm wondering.
because that's what this leads me to believe, is that there's not going to be just one altar for to come out as.
Yeah. So overall, the Super Bowl trailer that came out gave us a bit more detail. For one, Ethan Hawke's character, he has a tattoo that moves, like it actually dances, and it looks like it has the what's the god? The crocodile god.
Huh.
The one that's on H Bomber Guy's video about climate change.
Oh, what's his name? Oh my god. I know who you're talking about.
Yes,
too.
he has a tattoo of that.
What I'm really curious about, does it actually move, or does Oscar Isaac's character perceive it to move?
That's actually a good question.
Because really, for someone as like messed up as Oscar Isaac's character, that could be a possibility.
It could be.
But also there is the fact that we've talked previously about how this character has to create a cult around himself. Maybe he has the ability to influence others.
Yeah.
So it's not actually, but the people he talks to perceive it as.
Potentially. I think that could potentially be what it is.
Especially because this is a villain that's not really that well developed in its own.
Yeah, I mean, the villain is two-note villain, Nazi scientist, kind of generic by comic book standards, to be perfectly honest with you, in terms of, like, you know, villains.
Yeah.
So, yeah. But overall, Moon Knight comes out in about a month and a half.
Which, I'm running dry on Marvel content here. I just got finished watching the book set, and how long ago did we get any Marvel show? How long ago was No Way Home? That was a month and a half.
Yeah. I mean, saying that now in contrast to 2020 when it was just absolutely nothing is kind of hilarious.
Yeah, especially because we knew that hiatus was coming. And then the hiatus became even longer because of COVID. And now we came back and we were expecting rapid fire Marvel at least once every half year, and now several properties are getting delayed.
Yeah, but
I mean,
that's the way of the pandemic.
I mean, when was Morbius supposed to come out originally? I think it was
Supposed to come out last month. Yeah, no, Morbius
Yeah.
was supposed to come out last month.
And now that's delayed too.
Yeah, I mean, unfortunately,
Yeah,
that's how COVID works. And
we don't want to cover so actual life threatening stuff.
yeah, COVID is very depressing, and it permeates all aspects of life, as we will see when we get to our final topic. But we'll save that for when we get to the end. But have any more thoughts about Moon Knight?
Just super hyped. I'm actually really excited because, especially because of Kevin Feige's notes on it, as the Empire article progresses, that they aren't pulling their punches at all.
Yeah, and I really hope they don't, because for one, I think that pulling their punches would do a disservice to Moon Knight himself, but also because if we get Punisher to come back, it would be a good precedent to set that brutal characters are allowed to be brutal.
Yeah, because really the Punisher show, for Punisher standards, it was pretty tame.
Yeah, but then again, that's
'Cause, like-
because comic books are able to get away with a lot more.
Because the most brutal thing I think he did was hammering a guy's skull in, which, while brutal, it's not the worst thing he's done in his existence as a character.
Yeah. So, either way, do you think we'll see Punisher in Moon Knight?
Oh no,
I don't think so.
That's not
Yeah.
happening. I honestly don't expect other characters from the MCU to show up at all.
I think at the very end we'll see Doctor Strange, or not Doctor Strange, Blade. I mean, Blade.
Yeah.
Blade.
I
meant Blade instead of Doctor Strange. I was thinking, like
the only thing
character.
that could come to mind is Blade, because we're going to be seeing like a emergence of British-based MCU characters for sure.
Yeah.
Blade and Black Knight, all of them.
Yeah. So, yeah. But I think it's time that we get into the main thing, which is, of course, the trailer for Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness, the second trailer. And a lot was brought up in this trailer.
Yeah.
It was packed with a lot of hidden details between the trailer and the poster that came out. There's just a lot. So, what were your initial thoughts?
Most of my thoughts came from how, first thing that came to my mind is that one scene where he cuts down the train. That was probably the most highly saturated shot that I've seen from the entire trailer.
Wait, which scene? When he cuts
or any scene in that particular segment, that was unusually shot. The brightness scale was unusually bright for that type of scene, and we discussed this off stream and had some thoughts about that.
Yeah, I think that's because I believe they're going for very, very, very different aesthetics for every universe and dimension we cross into, to really hammer home just how different things are. Because I can totally see people getting lost in terms of where people are.
Yeah.
Because if they're hopping through dimensions, they're hopping through universes, I imagine some viewers would get lost on where each character lands. So if each area has a distinct visual aesthetic, it makes it harder for the viewer to get lost. Yeah, so I think having the highly saturated for some scenes will help keep it tonally consistent for where you stay in that universe.
And that's not even new for the MCU. That same thing was done for Infinity War, and why Infinity War has some of the best cinematography in the whole universe. In the whole universe, sorry.
Yeah.
Because while we have the stuff going on Earth, when we depart from that, it's typically the first half is shot in bluish purples, and then the second half is shot in bright orange.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
that was the first thing that caught my mind was the differences in each shot and how they're shot different aesthetics and saturation and all of that stuff.
Yeah. What else do you have? What else do you have thoughts about?
All right. Just the first thing to come up was the gore. Honestly,
Yeah, I mean,
like, because again, what's the amount of blood that we've gotten in this franchise? Like Thanos getting punched by Iron Man. Is that about it? Actually, Civil War had some too, but not
Civil
much.
War had some, but no, we're definitely getting a lot more gore this time, which I think makes sense. It is a horror movie. It's been a horror movie ever since it was announced that Scott Derrickson would be the one directing it, and even though he's since left and been replaced with Sam Raimi, they've always maintained that the gore and the level of horror that we're going to see is going to remain consistent. And now, I know Sovereign, he doesn't look at leaks because he feels that it ruins an experience for him.
Yeah.
I'm on the complete opposite end of the spectrum. I could give less of a fuck about spoilers or leaks because for me, I care less about what happens and more about how it happens and how it's portrayed. So I don't really care a lot about leaks. So I've been looking through a lot of leaks, and the trailer seems to be lining up with exactly what the leaks and with all the reporters have been saying about the gore, and particularly Wanda being gory. Because we see in this, she is covered in blood, presumably after fighting the Illuminati.
Yeah.
Which, what are your thoughts about the Illuminati showing up?
Which this is like it's probably going to be something similar to what we expected from what were the three ones from the TV? I think.
Oh, you're thinking of the Timekeepers.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. That's what I'm thinking they were supposed to be, like in a way, like control instead of like controlling the timelines, they're like ruling over the multiverses.
Yeah. So in the comics, the Illuminati was a bunch of team leaders: Iron Man, Professor X, Mr. Fantastic, Namor the Submariner, Black Bolt, and T'Challa. And they all basically had come together because they wanted to guide the world into a certain direction. And to do so, they took certain steps, such as banishing the Hulk from Earth. Doctor Strange was also a part of it, but they banished the Hulk from Earth, determining who was going to take part in interfering with the Superhuman Registration Act with Civil War. And of course, the main thing that they got known for was how they handled the incursions in the lead up to Secret Wars during a storyline called Time Runs Out, where basically they were destroying universes to prevent the destruction of their own.
Oh,
and
so in the comics, it was its own multiversal like entity.
No, it's mainly located to the 616 universe, but when the storyline Time Runs Out comes around, that's when they become sort of a multiversal in the sense that they start fighting multiversal threats. They fight a group called Squadron Supreme, which in the universe that they're coming from, they're a pastiche of the Justice League, and they try to say we don't need to destroy each other's Earths, we can find a way to protect each other, but at the end they end up having to destroy the other Earth. Doctor Strange kills them all. And so I think this Illuminati is particularly being adapted from the Time Runs Out version of them, where they're interacting with multiversal characters to protect their own.
Okay.
Yeah.
So in the comics, they were more of an entity based solely in one universe that dealt with multiversal threats.
Yeah.
Now, in this universe, that probably is going to be completely different, considering that half of the characters you've listed are either dead or don't exist in the current MCU. So, do you think that it's going to be just like the higher versions from separate universes coalescing into one?
So, part of me thinks that. So, a lot of people, and there's been a lot of discussion amongst people that have had leaks and just general fans and general fan discussion. And one thing that people seem to think is that all of these characters are coming from a different universe to come together. I don't think that's the case, actually, because of the fact that we've already gotten the Guardians of the Multiverse in What If. I don't think they're going to retread that. What I think this actually is that this is a universe where a bunch of heroes have come together to isolate themselves away from the threat of the multiverse. But something due to due to America's powers of being able to traverse the multiverse, Wanda seemingly coming into another universe, and obviously Strange fucking around with the multiverse, I think they arrest him when he appears in their universe.
So it's instead of the comics perspective, we're in looking out. In this movie, we're going to be out looking in.
Yes, that's
So
what I
it's gonna
think
be-
it is.
So it's going to be exactly like the comics, but not contained to the universe that we're used to.
Yeah, so put it in perspective, if this was based off of the Illuminati from Times Run Out, we would be seeing the perspective of Squadron Supreme facing 616 Illuminati instead of vice versa. That's what we would be seeing. Stephen Strange is the stranger to them. And what's interesting about this lineup about the Illuminati is that it seems to be somewhat the same and somewhat different. So we obviously heard Sir Patrick Stewart. We heard his voice, which means Professor X is there.
Yeah.
It's obviously Professor X. But we also saw hints that Captain Carter is going to be there. We saw Ultron bots, meaning that potentially Supreme, a lot of people are saying that it's the Supreme Iron Man or is going to be there. Some may say Ultron Infinite or Vision could be the one representing. We see a Captain Marvel variant that, in my opinion, looks like Lashana Lynch, meaning it's probably Maria Rambeau, which then I imagine in this universe, Maria's the one that takes the flight that Marvel is heading, and she gets blasted with cosmic radiation instead of Carol. So we have that. We see Baron Mordo, who looks to be the Sorcerer Supreme of this universe. And we also have a variant of Christine Palmer, who seems to be working in the tech board area. She seems to be working in some type of facility for the Illuminati. So it's really interesting because we have some of the mainstays, I guess, of the Illuminati in the sense that we have the mutant being Professor X.
You've got Iron Man.
You have an Iron Man in what could be the superior Iron Man / Ultron / Vision / whatever it is. We would have we'd have the Sorcerer in the form of Mordo. We'd have a super soldier in Captain Carter, because in the comics, Captain America used to be part of the Illuminati before they brainwashed him. We've never had a cosmic hero as part of the Illuminati, as part of the main group, because Captain Marvel in any of its forms have never really been part of it, so having Lashana Lynch's Captain Marvel be in it is pretty unique. But what do you think the other members of the Illuminati could be? Like, a lot of people are saying Mr. Fantastic Reed Richards, which would make sense. He's one of the main parts of the Illuminati in the comics.
I mean, not only that, because there is existence of the Council of Reeds as well to pull from. So he could have that potential position.
Yeah, he could be like the Council of Reed's member for the Illuminati, which would be interesting. We have Reed. Now, there are several other characters that I have heard are in the movie, but I will not bring up because they'll be spoilers for Sovereign. But from what I've heard, the lineup for the Illuminati is massive. Or it's massive because we're getting a lot of names, but some people have said that there's the Illuminati proper, and then there are lieutenants, in the sense that there are heroes that exist on Earth that will divert threats to the Illuminati if it's too much for them to handle. And it seems Strange would be one of those threats.
Yeah. Now let me ask, is the Illuminati's banishment of Hulk what leads to the Planet Hulk storyline?
Yes, in fact.
Oh.
So
I already have preconceptions about this already.
Yeah, so in the comics they sent Hulk away. They originally were going to send him to an abandoned planet where he's going to live out the rest of his days. But problems happen. He ends up on Sakaar, and he ends up living there, and he ends up becoming the ruler of Sakaar, and he's happy, and he has a kid. But then Meek, yes, Meek, the one you're thinking of from Thor Ragnarok, he actually engineers the ship that Hulk comes on to explode, which kills Hulk's family, which would then get Hulk to be angry and go on a warpath, and he would return to Earth, and that's when we get the events of World War Hulk.
Yeah. Yeah, I
But
just remember that being an absolute nightmare.
yeah,
Yeah.
but there have been rumors that World War Hulk will be adapted in some way, which some
Oh,
people are saying that potentially the ending of She-Hulk is going to have Hulk realizes he has a kid on Sakaar and he needs to go dip to go figure that out,
oh
which
God.
makes sense. I mean, it was implied in Ragnarok that Hulk fucks. It was implied that Hulk fucks, so he probably has a kid.
Oh, that would be funny, especially to see Jeff Goldblum back.
Oh, of course, Jeff Goldblum would definitely come back.
Yeah.
But what else? The thing that's confused me the most is the number of Doctor Stranges in this movie.
Because as we've seen we've seen normal Doctor Strange.
Yeah,
We've seen Defender Strange.
yeah,
We've seen Zombie Strange.
Zombie Strange.
Strange Supreme is implied to be in the movie as well.
Yeah, but
And
then we also have the Sinister Strange, which seems to be different from Strange Supreme.
yeah,
So that's 5 different Doctor Stranges. Now, some people are saying Zombie Strange is actually Defender Strange.
and people are pulling that from the fact that they've got similar hair patterns.
I personally don't see the hair pattern.
Yeah, or just the location, because you can easily buy like, oh, the hair is messed up.
Yeah. So maybe. I'm just confused on how many Doctor Stranges there are. And from all the leaks I've seen, I've always seen a inconsistent number of Doctor Stranges. So I really don't know how many there are. But from what it looks like, their Stranges are dying. At least Defender Strange seems to be dying from what we saw in the trailer.
Yeah.
So we have that. And then what else do we have? We have Wanda. So let's talk about Wanda and how she's completely gone off the deep
I will say, this at least proves that watching WandaVision will be necessary material to watch beforehand,
end. Yeah.
which I do like. Because,
In my opinion,
because let's
yeah.
just face it, she hasn't suffered any consequences from that, and she needs to. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
It has to be said, she's the villain of that story,
Yeah.
and nobody can convince me otherwise.
No, you're probably right. In my opinion, the required watching before this movie is WandaVision, Loki, What If, Spider-Man, and then you watch this movie.
Yeah.
Because they all connect. Because we're seeing aspects of What If with Captain Carter, the multiverse obviously delved in with Loki.
And of course, Loki was the big trigger to the multiverse splitting.
Yeah, pretty much. Which some people are saying that Tom Hiddleston and Sophie DiMartino are going to show up. So we may see Loki and Sylvie. And some people are even saying that Owen Wilson will show up. So maybe we'll see Morbius as well. So there's that. So back to Wanda. She's definitely the villain here. She basically admits that she's the villain, where she's like, you ruined the multiverse and you're a hero. I ruined the multiverse and I'm the villain. That seems unfair, right?
See, anyone who doesn't think that, I would kind of... Because if she was still, like, a genuine hero in the story, that line would make no sense whatsoever.
Yeah.
Because if you think about it, that just... that completely goes past every bad thing she's done.
Yeah,
so that has to be said from the stand.
I saw a meme, and it was like, she says, I do and become the enemy. And Strange responds, I helped a teenage boy, plus you kidnapped entire families, plus L, plus ratio, plus you did it for selfish interest, plus I'm a superhero, plus you killed civilians in Lagos, plus you caused civil war, plus your kids don't exist, plus this you clown face. Which, yeah, I mean, she fucked up a lot. Which I think is supposed to set her up for what I believe is House of M. Which, in my opinion, I think is actually going to be the real way we get mutants to show up in the MCU. Which is going to be a House of M storyline. Which, in my opinion, I think what's going to happen at the end of this movie is that Wanda is going to have a massive battle with Strange and the Illuminati and everyone else, and it's going to be too much, and she's going to just end up, just completely, battered. The power of the Darkhold has, corrupted her mind, but she's lost the Darkhold because, let's be honest, there's no way in hell they're letting her get away with having the Darkhold by the end.
Yeah.
There's just no way. So, in my opinion, I think she's going to lose the Darkhold, and I think she's going to just escape. I don't think she's dying.
Oh, no, of course not. Too many people love Wanda and Elizabeth Olsen.
Yeah, I don't think she's dying in this movie. I think she's just going to get away, but she's not going to be she's not going to have a good time. Like, I think she's going to fail in getting her kids. I think she's just going to be absolutely battered. But I think when we see her again, I think is going to be the setup for House of M, where she's going to, in another ploy to get her kids, create movies. And I think part of it will be from her experience with Professor X in this movie.
Which, I will say, one of my biggest fears of this movie, like spoilers and leaks completely thrown out, was that what I hoped would not happen is that this movie would clash the Fox and MCU together, which would not make sense at all. The only character that would make sense for is Deadpool, mostly because of his time travel shenanigans at the end of Deadpool 2. Now, him, breaking the fourth wall, it's almost a responsibility of the MCU to pull them and just pluck him and just drop him straight into the MCU.
Yeah.
Because with him time travel, it is viable you can buy the fact that, his multiversal shenanigans could wind him into the MCU.
Yeah.
He can help. You can even make a joke saying, hey, this universe looks better. I'm staying here for
To be perfectly honest, I believe if Deadpool comes over, Cable's coming.
Honestly, him too. He's been time traveling a lot too.
I mean, that's his whole thing. Cable is straight up a time traveler. What would be interesting, though, is seeing, we get Cable, but we have yet to actually see Scott Summers and Jean Grey by the time we see Cable in the MCU. Because, if you don't know, Cable is the descendant of Cyclops and Jean Grey.
Yeah.
But, yeah, I don't think they're merging it, but I do think we're getting a merger of a pre-established universe with this. Which is, in my opinion, I think the universe that this Illuminati takes place in is, in fact, the X-Men the Animated Series universe. And that this will, in fact, collide with X-Men 97. Because, in my opinion, it is way too coincidental that they decided to revive the 90s X-Men show, conveniently in Phase 4, surrounded by all these other shows. I think it's a little bit convenient, especially because people are always talking about how we're going to get the X-Men characters, and everyone talks about the Fox movies. But no one has stopped to think about, what are they doing over there with that animated series? We already know that Marvel Animation connects to the MCU with What If. Who's to say that X-Men 97 isn't the secret connection that we're all missing out on?
And isn't X-Men 97 marketed as an MCU property anyway?
It's marketed as being run by Marvel Studios.
Yeah.
Which, I think, to be perfectly honest, I think it's actually going to be the universe where we have the Illuminati. Because if I'm not mistaken, the X-Men, the regular X-Men 90s TV show, has made it known that the other Marvel heroes do in fact exist. They just don't really go in depth about them because it's not about them.
Yeah. Now, what would be extremely funny is if the cameo characters that we're expecting to come in the show, or in the movie, are so much better than their original counterparts in the MCU that fans start asking for side things with just them.
I can already see it. I mean, at this point...
imagine an Iron Man 4 where it takes place completely separate from anything going on in the main universe, and it's just Tom Cruise doing his stuff.
Yeah, I mean, now that you've brought it up, I feel safe to bring it up, but everyone is expecting that Superior Iron Man's in the movie, and it is in fact played by Tom Cruise, which would be a very deep cut because back in 2007 and 2008, the two leading men that were in the running for Iron Man were Robert Downey Jr. and Tom Cruise.
Yeah.
Some people have even joked about the fact that what if not only do we see Tom Cruise superior Iron Man, but Terrence Howard War Machine is the War Machine of that universe.
Now that would be funny. And the only reason I'm perfectly okay with saying that because of the countless articles that have come out in the public.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
completely eliminating leaked sources. That has been out in media articles for how long?
A while.
Yeah. That is almost as bad as a Hollywood secret. It's like one tier below Andrew Garfield and Tobey Maguire.
One thing that I think is a really interesting question that not a lot of people have been asking, but I think is one that should be asked, which is, who do you think Bruce Campbell is going to play as? Now, Bruce Campbell has been in pretty much every single Sam Raimi movie. He was obviously the leading man in the Evil Dead franchise, and he's been pretty much in every single Sam Raimi film. I do not think that this is going to be an exception.
So you're saying we have another James Gunn situation?
Yes, I think Bruce Campbell is going to be in this movie. Who do you think he'd play as, though?
You're asking a very open-ended question. It's hard to choose one character.
Yeah, I mean, you gotta remember, most people will know Bruce Campbell for being Ash Williams. He is the chainsaw-wielding protagonist of Evil Dead. Everyone knows who Ash Williams is. So, who do you think they would put in this role? Because it is a horror movie.
Yeah.
And Bruce Campbell's definitely in this movie. So, who do you think they'll play as?
I've got nothing. I don't.
See, even amongst the leaks, no one knows, but there are theories. There is a certain character that has been brought up in leaks who so far has no actor tied to the character. And some people think Bruce Campbell will be playing that character. And I think it'd be interesting. It'd be a character we hadn't seen before. So it makes sense for Bruce Campbell to be there. But, yeah. I'm convinced Bruce Campbell's in this movie. Like, nothing is going to tell me he's not.
Yeah. Honestly, if this movie comes out good, I might just try to watch something. Because Sam Raimi is, as far as we know, like, he's a big horror guy.
Yeah, no, he's...
Like, there are even horror elements in Spider-Man, too.
Yeah, no, he's more of a horror guy than he is the Spider-Man guy.
Yeah.
So...
Because I think the only movie I've seen him, like I've seen that he's produced is that one Florida horror movie.
Oh, God, the one with the gators.
Yeah, that one.
Crawl.
That's the one, yes.
You mean the one where both of them should have died?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
God, that movie was so dumb.
Oh, yeah, it was really dumb.
It was really dumb. Listen, if you are a non-Floridian and you saw Crawl, let it be known by two people that have lived in Florida, you will die if you encounter that many alligators. You will die.
Also, it is Florida
in some respects.
In a lot of respects.
Surviving that many alligators, I refuse to accept. No, you will die. You will absolutely die. Especially if they get you in a death roll, which is when it literally throws you around. You will die.
Oh, yeah.
You do not survive a death roll from an alligator. Crawl. I don't know. That woman that woman should be in the MCU. Make her Captain Marvel. Because clearly she's superhuman and she survived all that shit. Anyways.
Yeah. Anything else to go on? How about some of the other characters that we see in the...
So, what do you think about Mordo's arc? Because last time we've seen him, we see him saying that he is going to get rid of all sorcerers, and we see him taken away from that one dude who first told Steven about Comitage. So what do you think his role in the movie is? A lot of people are saying that the one that we see is a variant from that universe, which I'm inclined to agree with, because I don't see
Yeah,
I don't
I
see
don't see any way for him to really fit in this story.
I don't see him hopping universes because, I mean, if he thought using the Time Stone was sacrilege, him jumping to another universe to become the Sorcerer Supreme, then I just can't see it.
Yeah.
I think the one we're getting is a variant.
Then again, we have seen people go crazy to the blip before.
True, but I think this is
that's a very minuscule chance. I am convinced he's a variant.
Which means, what is our Mortal doing? Like, the leaks have indicated it's going one way. But at the same time,
well,
there have been some aspects of it that seem to be unclear. So, it may be going in a way that we just don't know.
Maybe, and this is just pure speculation, is that they, like, the Mordo we see and Strange have their own character arc where they hash out their differences. Because maybe the differences they have stretch across universes, like different versions of Mordo saying contempt with Doctor Strange.
I think,
and maybe in a post-credit scene we bring back the original and hash it out peacefully.
Maybe. I mean, in the comics, Mordo is one of Doctor Strange's worst enemies. So I kind of feel like that bridge is just going to be burned forever.
Think so?
Yeah, Mordo's kind of. He's kind of the Doctor Strange villain outside of Fisto. So I think that bridge is burnt. I don't think even if he shows up in a post-credit scene, it's going to be like, oh, let's hash out a difference. If anything, he's going to be more pissed. Because think about it. Strange used the Time Stone, and even though he saved the universe, Mordo thought that was sacrilege. Now look at all the shit Strange has done since. He let the blip happen. He let the snap happen. He fucked around and found out what the multiverse for Peter Parker. He's now currently fucking around and finding out what the multiverse again. Wanda is a thing, and she fucked up. We have Agatha Harkness running around with the fucking Darkhold. Magic has clearly shown itself to be completely just unstable and out of control in the hands of multiple people. And so I think, if anything, this will galvanize Mordo even more to say, fuck magic. Fuck all of you. And I think he will, if there's a Doctor Strange 3 and our version of Mordo is in it, I think it will be him firmly believing that magic needs to go, period. Especially if he gets access to the multiverse and he sees the other forms of Doctor Strange fucking around. Imagine our Mordo somehow gets a purview into seeing Strange Supreme and what the fuck he did. I think he absolutely would be completely just steel-manned into his position that magic needs to go.
Yeah. Well, most villains don't really have much staying power, but if Doctor Strange 2 breaks that mold, I will be happy with that.
Yeah.
Because we need more long-lasting villains.
Yeah, we do.
Because have we really gotten it long-lasting villains?
Loki.
Loki is one of them.
And by one, you mean the only.
Yeah.
He's pretty much the only long-lasting villain. Every other villain pretty much dies in the end.
Yeah. Which is a shame, but...
Yeah. I mean, we got Zemo. But that's only 2.
And Loki's shown up in how many?
A lot.
Yeah.
Relative to...
he showed up in, at least 5 properties.
He showed up in Thor, Avengers, Thor 2, Thor 3, Infinity War, Endgame, and Loki. And Doctor Strange. No, those 5.
Yeah.
Those 6. 7! Fuck!
Yeah, you're thinking...
And what if? 8.
Yeah, you were thinking about the scene from Thor Ragnarok, weren't you?
No. He showed up in 8 different MCU properties. Which is a lot, to be perfectly honest with you.
Yeah.
And he's getting a season 2. And he may show up in this movie.
Yeah.
So, yeah. What else? What do you think Wong's character arc? Because he's now currently the Sorcerer Supreme.
Yeah.
What do you think his character arc for this movie is? I think, for one, he's definitely going to fight Wanda. Because it looks like she's attacking Kamar-Taj.
Yeah. Which, considering that Doctor Strange is now under under Wong as far as hierarchy is concerned.
Yeah.
What would lead the events to happen under Wong's supervision? Behind his back, or would he have any involvement at all?
So, in my opinion, I think Wong has to be involved.
Oh, without a doubt. I'm just curious about what leads like the events of this movie to happen while Wong is still in charge. Because God knows after, then again, I guess he wouldn't even be aware of what happened. No, wait,
Ha!
yeah, he wouldn't know what happened in No Way Home. So he would be under the exact same situation as what happened when he first asked to use the memory wipe spell.
Yeah, actually, yeah, wait a minute. God damn it, you're right. I didn't even realize he wouldn't remember anything.
Yeah.
Okay, well, the last time we saw Wong, he was in Shang-Chi. And it seems that he has taken a proactive role in the superhero community.
Yeah.
Because he's training Abomination, and he seems to be able to have contact with both
with Captain Marvel,
Captain Marvel and Hulk and Shang-Chi,
yeah.
And seems to be interested in the artifacts of the Ten Rings. And so I imagine that his angle within this movie is he is going to try and want both Wanda and America Chavez to be trained or be brought in to handle this multiversal crisis. So, like, get the forces of magic together on one playing field. So, I think that's what his aim is. And I think it's all going to go to shit because we know Wanda's going to attack Hermitage. So, I think Wong's arc is going to be him leading the Masters of Mr. Arcs more like how the Ancient One did, where she kind of led from the front in terms of combating threats with the Master of Mystic Arcs versus Strange, who kind of did it all on his own with minimal help from Wong.
Yeah.
So I think that's what it's gonna work out.
Especially because if you really think about it, would he approve of using Wanda?
She is a sorcerer with immense magic that has been completely untrained. I think Wong would be someone that would want someone that powerful in magic to be trained.
See, I see a potential of she's too dangerous type of scenario that we see in a lot of
the reason why I don't think that is Wong knows she's existed for a while.
Yeah.
She's been on the scene and popular.
But then again, you have to consider the events of Wanda.
I feel like that,
like after multiple events of her like messing up with the events leading to Civil War.
I think that would be more. I think that'd be more of a reason for him to want her to be under their supervision.
That would be more of a reason for Strange to.
I think Wong would
like be, you're right, but maybe not for the right character.
I think Wong would want it too because we've seen how Wong views the Ten Rings. He doesn't view them as a threat. Even though he has no clue what they are, they're clearly involved with some extra-dimensional power, and they're able to have some form of cosmic beacon, and he didn't want to take them away from Shang-Chi. He just wanted to analyze them with him, which leads me to believe he's someone that actually wants to bring in all these different forces and make sure that they're all stable. I mean, he's training Abomination, which
considering like the events from the first book is kind of a stretch, not gonna lie.
So I think if anything, it'd be in character for Wong to want to train Wong.
Yeah.
What was one thing I was gonna bring up? I was gonna bring up, speaking of magic, you haven't watched Runaways. Well,
the Darkhold is in that show, right?
Yes, the Darkhold is in Runaways, and in fact, there's a character named Miko Minoru, who she uses the Staff of One, which has been referenced within Doctor Strange. And at the end of the Runaways, it's implied that she actually is trying to find Hermitage to learn how to master magic. Do you think we'll see a slight cameo from her as one of just the many different sorcerers we'll see in the background?
Oh god, if they even want to reference Runaways or any of those shows, they are going to be very.
I think it could work. Just have her as a little background character.
It could work, but Marvel has to be extremely brave in order to reference any of those pieces of media.
I think so, especially because there is one thing in the leaks where they mention there's basically a nameless character that has a minorly important role in the plot, doing something. They don't have a name. Part of me kind of thinks that, what if it is Nico? What if she actually does show up in this movie and she is that minorly important character? I think that'd be pretty cool. Just to bring in, just to really show that under Wong's leadership, the forces of magic are really coming together. Yeah. Another thing that we've seen is a Minotaur, which in the comics that is Rintra, who is a Minotaur and he is a sorcerer. So, what do you feel just seeing a mythological creature like that just chilling, despite us not getting any indication that existed?
I'm just going to let the audience know WTF face right now. So, what the fuck?
Yeah, I'm just kind of like, it's cool, but I'm like, why didn't you just show him in the first movie? Because he's kind of important.
We've gotten Pegasus or Pegasi in this franchise before,
but that made more sense in the context that
made more sense as far as the context. You're right.
They came from Valhalla.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, what?
Where did this come from?
Especially because you just see a bunch of humans and then Minotaur. So are there more of him? Do Minotaurs exist within the regular Marvel universe as just a race of people? If Minotaurs exist, do centaurs exist? Do, mermaids exist? I mean, obviously some form of fishmen, merfolk exists because Namor's coming. But, what else exists within the Marvel universe? The MCU specifically. Because the MCU prides itself on being a more grounded version of Marvel Comics. So randomly having a Minotaur there is kind of like, what? Some people are also wondering, I'm forgetting the name. There's another Minotaur who's minorly important, but she is actually what is the name of the ladies that help you with pregnancies? Midwives. There's a Minotaur who's a midwife for Wanda and helps give birth to Billy and Tommy. So I'm wondering if the introduction of Rintra is to kind of streamline the idea of Minotaurs just existing.
Could always come from a different universe.
It doesn't look like he does, though. He seems to just be chilling at Hermitage within our universe. And it doesn't seem like anyone is, looking at him funny either.
I need more context, honestly.
Yeah.
I need a lot more context to even dissect that.
Yeah. Do you think we'll see a resurgence, a reappearance of Tilda Swinton's ancient one?
Could be. I could definitely see it as either as a flashback or a different.
Yeah, I would be pretty interesting to see the ancient one come back. Do you think? Okay, now we're coming down to basically the last two characters that we've yet to discuss. What do you think the character arc of Christine Palmer is going to be?
See, that is very.
We've seen two variants of her at least in this movie. Yeah. One of which is getting married to not Stephen, and the other in the Illuminativerse. And she seems to travel with Strange in America because in the first trailer we see her when that hatch opens and you see Strange in America. She's with them. So one of the Christines is gonna be there, in this plot as a character. So what do you think her role is gonna be?
See, I was never convinced by their romance in the first movie, not gonna lie. Their most convincing romance was actually in What If.
Well, I think that's the point, because in the first movie, they aren't in love. Yeah. She's moved on. She isn't in love with him.
Or not even their romance, just their chemistry as characters.
Yeah, I can see that. But
this movie would need to do a lot of to bind a potential character to it.
Yeah. But, she seems to have a somewhat influential role considering she is, she's working for the Illuminati and the Illuminativerse, which is way more important than being a random surgeon in New York City.
Yeah.
So I'm wondering what her angle is going to be in this. I do think, now this could be interesting. What if she was in love with Defender Strange? He dies. The Christine in our universe dies. And so our Strange and that Christine come together as they are the ones that have lost each other.
That would be funny. I will say that would be very interesting.
Yeah.
Again, this movie has to do a lot of work to make her character substantial, because her character was not that substantial in Doctor Strange 1.
Yeah.
So I would need to see her character become have a bigger part in this movie, and to anything from her character at all.
Yeah. Okay, that's fair. Yeah, that she didn't have too much to do in the original Doctor Strange, and when we did see her in What If, she was still very passive in the sense that she was literally getting fridged every 5 seconds.
Yeah.
So
I mean, she still had a huge influence on that story.
She did,
Like
but her influence was mainly in dying.
Yeah, her influence was plot relevance, honestly.
Yeah. But I do wonder what this Christine's going to be like. And then, last but not least, the last character that we should talk about is, of course, America Chavez.
Honestly, they really, I have nothing to go on because they sideline her in every shot they put her in these trailers.
Yeah. I talked about this with Sovereign off stream. But in my opinion, I think America is going to be the Yelena of this movie, where we didn't really get a lot of insight into who Yelena was through the trailers. But when we got her in the movies, she stole the show. And I think America is going to be similar.
But see, here's the thing. America shows up more in the marketing than Yelena ever did. Are you talking about Black Widow or Hawkeye?
Black Widow.
No, when you talk about Yelena, I'm thinking Hawkeye.
No, I'm thinking Yelena back in Black Widow.
No, she was shown off a lot.
But not her character. You saw her presence.
Here's the thing. I'm not talking about, presence. I'm talking about, how she's shot. She has very few shots where she's of focus. We only got her a shot of her in focus in the second trailer. It's like in the first trailer, they were trying to hide her while having her still in trailers.
I mean, she was there.
She was there, but she was never the focus of, this character showing up. They kind of just moved on.
I don't think Yelena was treated any differently than America was.
No, I think Yelena was treated much better.
I don't think so. I remember the lead up to Black Widow and all of its trailers. Yelena was a side character in the trailers. She barely had any focus. The main scene that they kept repeating was the whole gun switching scene. But you didn't see her do anything else. We never got to see any of her. We didn't get to see basically any of the scenes of her in the helicopter. We didn't get to see any of her scenes when she was running through Dreykov's facility. We didn't see any of her on the farm. We barely even saw Kid Yelena in any of the trailers. We only really saw 1 or 2 scenes of the same scene of her.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is that between that interaction that you said between Natasha and Yelena, she still had a decent amount of focus on the shot. She still took up half of the shot from Natasha. Meanwhile, in the first trailer, you had America standing behind Christine and Strange. So I'm just saying, these trailers have not done a very good job of showing her.
Yeah, but I would also argue that they didn't do so for Yelena, and Yelena stole the show. So I think she's going to be a character like that.
Maybe it's just a problem I have with both of them. I see it more prominent in these trailers more than Black Widow, because at least they showed. Also, they just showed her having conflict in general with Natasha. Here, you got nothing for her character as far as what she's like, what her motivations are, or anything like that.
I mean, I would also say we didn't get that for Yelena in her trailer either.
You know,
Because, like,
I'm
even
gonna
though when she had, even though they framed her in conflict, you have no context for it. All you know is
I mean, you don't
they
need that.
draw gun, but
You
yeah,
don't
you
need
do.
that. You don't really need that context
But-
either.
But
Because
yeah, you do, because you don't know what Yelena's purpose in the story is. At least in these trailers.
I don't want a trailer to show that off. I'm gonna
No,
be
but in
honest.
these trailers, you are at least established that America is an ally. She is going to be helping Strange in this journey. Yelena in the Black Widow movie trailers never portrayed her as someone that was either with or against Natasha. She was just there, which I think was more of a disservice to what we were thinking this character was going to be than America, because at least with America, she's framed pretty consistently as a good guy, as someone that is going to be the companion to Strange in this movie. With Yelena, we weren't really going to get an indication of whether she was actually going to be the companion to Natasha.
See, I don't really like comparing this to Yelena because most of this thoughts come from just this. See, I'm just really wanting them to show off because I know this character is going to have a massive role in this movie, especially because her power is just messing with the multiverse.
Yeah.
That is her power, and I wish I got to know more about this character because all in all, we don't know that much. I don't really feel like comparing it to Yelena really helps this argument. In fact, it just means that it's a problem that happens with multiple other characters.
Yeah, but what I'm trying to say is that what it's probably doing is how they're treating her, is how they're treating her, Yelena, where they're holding back much of America because they want it to be shown for the first time in the movie. Yelena barely got any characterization in the trailers, which is why she became such a breakout character once the movie itself came out. Because you had no frame of reference, so you were able to just follow along with the character. You weren't expecting anything because the trailers didn't build up expectations for it. And I think they're trying to build a similar vibe with America, where they're purposefully holding her back in trailers because they want you, when you finally do see her, to experience her like how people experience Yelena. I think it's that. I think it's an intentional holding back of a major character.
I just have an issue with just how they held her back because they show her, but she's in the background. It's not like they are hiding her intentionally. So that's what I feel like. The camera work of these trailers, like, hides her poorly in a way because again, she's like in the background and never focus, but she's still there. Like Yelena.
I mean, she was in the foreground when Gargantos. In
the second trailer.
No, that's also in the first trailer. When Gargantos throws the boss and Strange cuts it in half, she's also in the foreground for that.
Yeah.
Which was back in the first trailer. So, she was there too.
Maybe it's just a problem I have with this trend of because if I'm going to be honest here, when I watch the MCU, I watch it for the characters.
Yeah.
So maybe I just have a problem with this trend in general.
I've noticed a specific trend with Marvel now where they seem to want certain characters to not show up in marketing. So when you experience their characters for the first time, it's fresh. They did this with Agatha.
Yeah.
They did this with Agatha. They did this with what's his face? They did it with Zemo. They did it with Sylvie. They did it with what's his face? Xialing. That's her name. They did it with Xialing. Even within Hawkeye, they did it with Echo. There's always a major character that is sparse in the marketing, but is always considered like a great character once we've actually seen them. I mean, they especially did this with the two Spider-Men.
Oh, for sure.
Where they're major characters in No Way Home, but we have sparse characterization. We had no characterization of them in the trailers because they really wanted us to experience that characterization for the first time in the movie. I think this has been a general trend within Phase 4, and I think America is just the next character where we're like, okay, we're going to show X, Y, and Z characters, and of those characters, we're going to take one of them out and we're gonna let the audience be surprised about where we take this character.
Yeah.
I think it's just another
just-
step.
Maybe it's no. I'm gonna say this comes from the fact that, in all reality, we really know nothing about this movie. We know the Illuminati's involved in that. We have many different cameos, but we don't have a.
I mean, we know Wanda's using the Darkhold to find her kid.
And that's about it. Like with other trailers, like we pretty much knew the plot to No Way Home as soon as we saw the trailer.
No, we didn't.
We knew the instigating incident to start the trailer.
Yes, but we didn't know.
But we knew enough for the trailer to get us excited.
Yeah, but I'm going to be perfectly honest with you. I don't think any recent Marvel, especially for Phase 4, has given you any indication of where the plot is actually going. Like with Black Widow, we did not know this was going to be a deep cut back to a singular line that Loki spoke of in the Avengers. We did not know that's where the movie was going. With Eternals, we knew we were fighting deviants, but we didn't know that the end result was that we were actually going to be dealing with the fact that the Celestials lied. With Shang-Chi, we knew we were fighting Wenwu, but we didn't realize that we're fighting Wenwu because he's being controlled by a demon. Like, I feel we know what a conflict will be, but we don't understand what the conflict is about.
Well, we never need that much to begin with.
But I feel this movie is the same thing. The conflict is this. Strange has to stop Wanda from fucking around in the multiverse so she can find her kids. That's the conflict. What we don't know is how it's all going to play out. I feel this movie has fallen very much in line with how Marvel has been advertising the rest of the Phase 4, which is they show you what a conflict will be, but they are not going to tell you why or how the conflict is coming about. I would even extend this to the Sony movies. In Venom, Let There Be Carnage, we know Venom and Carnage are fighting. We don't know why they fight. In Morbius, we do know Morbius will in fact come into conflict with people that don't want vampires. But we don't know why. He seems to be the first vampire, but people already seem on edge with some supernatural being. But we don't know why. But we have some theories about it. Even with Moon Knight, for example. We know that he will be fighting a David Koresh-esque cult leader. Well, what reason do we have? I feel it's the same. None of Marvel's Phase 4 advertising, in my opinion, has ever really portrayed why the conflict is happening. We just know who is fighting who. And I think this trailer is very much shaping. It's Strange v. Wanda. It's Strange v. Wanda 3.
We gotta cut this debate, because clearly you...
Like, for me, I just think I think it's pretty consistent. I just think that this movie has been so hyped up that we kind of expected more. Because initially, I did feel similarly to you, where I felt like I didn't understand where it was coming from, and I felt like, man, if I hadn't read the leaks, I'd be totally confused. But then I went back and looked at other Marvel things, and I realized, I was actually pretty much just in the dark about how things were going with everything in Phase 4. From
Maybe it's
Black Widow onwards.
It's probably just a new marketing tactic using.
Yeah.
Let's just face it, in like Phase 3, we can pretty much discern the plot. Like, immediately, I think, to plot.
Yeah.
Like, that one revealed how much?
It
revealed every... Which, framing it like that, it's probably smart that they're changing the tactics this time.
Yeah. Especially because after Infinity War and Endgame, where, like, we didn't know, but we knew.
Yeah.
I mean,
they left enough hints in those ones to where you...
Like, the way you felt was how I felt about Black Widow. Because going into Black Widow, I pretty much knew nothing about what the fuck was supposed to happen. I knew it was supposed to take place in between Civil War and Infinity War, and I knew it was supposed to serve of showing off Yelena Belova for when she'll inevitably appear down the line in Phase 4, but I never really understood, like, what was supposed to happen. But then after seeing the movie, seeing what they did with Shang-Chi, where it was kind of, I got the same feeling, where I was like, so we know he's going to fight Wenwu, but why? And then I realized, wait a minute, everything has been showing us. I mean, the prime example is that people, for the longest time, didn't realize that the fight was always going to be Wanda v. Agatha and WandaVision because they didn't show you that that was supposed to be the main fight. You knew Agatha is there, which obviously means villain, meaning she will be clashing, but you didn't know she was the villain.
Yeah.
So I think it's just a new marketing strategy.
Yeah. Well, I think we should cut the segment there because clearly we're getting extremely sidelined here.
Yeah, but I mean, it's not necessarily sidelined because we're still talking about the trailer itself and the movie and how it's affecting our perception of the movie.
Yeah. But I'm still excited for this movie.
Oh,
Please
definitely.
stop delaying this movie unless you actually have to delay the movie to make this movie better. In that case,
I mean,
just make it good, please.
I mean, it's not going to compete with the Batman.
Oh yeah, that is true.
Yeah.
That is right. Oh my god, the Batman is coming out soon.
Yeah, next month all we got to look forward to is Moon Knight and Oh my god!
Oh god!
Moon Knight and Batman. Oh
These
god,
jokes never end.
They're way too similar. God damn it!
No, the thing is, they're not. They're similar on the surface to people who can't see past their.
I know.
See past their own fingers.
I know. The reality of Moon Knight is that he's a pseudo pastiche of Batman. Like he has.
I don't see Batman being possessed by no sun god.
What I mean is, he has.
Moon god. I'm sorry.
I mean, the whole jumping across buildings, the vigilante at night, the fucking moonarangs instead of batarangs.
Actually, no. Moon Knight is a commentary on Batman because Batman's a psychopath.
Shut up. We're moving on.
So clearly they're the one and the same.
Shut up. We're moving on.
All right,
Okay.
Before moving on to our next segment, I do want to thank chat for participating.
Yes.
Actually getting chats from both YouTube and Twitch.
Even though I'm pretty sure the YouTube chatter is a bot. Hey,
we love them just the same.
Yes.
But we're still getting rid of them.
Yes, goodbye, bot. But, yes, thank you to Tay_K_98 on Twitch. I believe I know who that is, but thank you for chatting and tuning in.
All right.
So, before we move on to our next segment, I do want to make a small announcement. So, we have actually created a Patreon. And so, on Patreon, we've decided that we're going to post content on there that we would find interesting, that work well with our dynamic, but doesn't mesh well with the flow of our show. Our show is mainly reporting on
current events and things of that nature.
It's mainly current events or social issues that tie into current events, like dating in a post-COVID world, or the Great Resignation.
You actually said it right this time.
Yes,
Congratulations.
I made sure to say it right this time. And the Great Resignation. Those are more current events, and we like reporting about that on the show. But there are other things that we could talk about, and I think our Patreon is probably where we're going to talk about, like, more just opinionated things, like talk about like Pokemon, Mario Kart, Smash, or think like theory, like leftist theory, and things along those lines. Things that we are interested in talking about, but just don't necessarily mesh well with they don't necessarily just like mesh well with what we've established. And so I do want to say that we're starting a Patreon, and it would be great. I believe we're going to have it set at $5, which obviously please do not pay for the Patreon if you cannot pay for it. This is only for those that can afford to do it. But yeah, we'll be giving you all some exclusive content.
Yeah.
So anything you want to add about that?
Yeah, not sure when we'll start uploading content to the Patreon, but I think the first one we want to touch on is memories with Mario Kart in general. And where we place each of them. I actually have I think I've got a little bit more of an experience with Mario Kart because I've played most of I've at least, dedicated, well, actually, I shouldn't go into this. I'm going to save this for later.
Yes, just letting you know that we are huge Mario Kart fans. Mario Kart was my first video game, so yeah.
And also, you've got a top 16 major place contestant over here.
Yes.
I placed top 16 at a major for Mario Kart. Just a quick flex right there.
Yes. Unfortunately, though, most people care about skill level in terms of time trials.
Hey, it was tough.
It
Okay.
probably was.
It was really tough to compete in the semifinals. I will say that.
Yes, but our Patreon is linked in both YouTube chat and Twitch chat. Sorry, Twitter chat. You can just go to the All My Links page that is in our bio on Twitter, and our Patreon should be there. It's $5, and yeah, it's there for exclusive content.
Okay.
Anyways, I think it's time for us to start our politics segment, and let's start with a W, a big W, in fact, which
the passing
is
out of another L.
yes. Well, a W for
us, an L for them.
yeah, a W for basically anyone that is a decent human being, which is that Prince Andrew is settling out of court with Virginia Giuffre.
Which is a huge win because, of course, a few months ago, we covered.
Ghislaine Maxwell.
Yeah. And, this has been a settlement to where he's going to pay to Virginia Giuffre's charity.
A charity of choice, and it's unknown if she's getting money.
That hasn't been made unclear at this point. But the big thing to come out of this is that Prince Andrew is actually going to lose a ton of his noble titles.
Oh yeah, he's losing many of his noble titles. And with the settlement, he does have to admit that Virginia Giuffre was a victim of abuse. He has to admit that.
Yes.
Which, all things considered, a member of the royal family being held accountable to this level is, I think, pretty unprecedented.
Oh yeah. I think we're all in agreement that any senator or anybody of that caliber is not falling to the events of January 6th. Which is I'm only bringing that up because it's an easy comparison to the most recent experiences that we feel angry at leadership.
Yeah.
But to see this is the biggest moment of accountability towards leadership that does not involve
the French Revolution.
We can just say without the French Revolution, and people will understand what we're saying.
Yeah. One thing that I like, it sounds silly, but it's actually really important. He is no longer able to use the title Your Royal Highness.
Yeah.
Which you laugh haha, you can't be called Your Royal Highness, but that's actually
very
major, especially in British culture, where the royal family is treated like how we treat the Kardashians. They are superstars. They are celebrities. The royal family is the center of the gossip world in the UK. So having someone of that level of prestige and status get completely taken down is incredible.
And he's also lost his military titles, too.
Yes, he's lost his military titles. He has lost his nobility titles. And
considering that he's put 20 years into the military, all of that hard work can just go
Exactly. It's also coming off the heels of 115 veterans from the Royal Military all saying that they want him stripped. So it wasn't just something done. Obviously, it was done to save face, but there was clamoring within the military itself to get him out of there. Which, in my opinion, really goes to show that a lot of people think he did this. Which, you know our opinion, he definitely fucking did it.
Yeah. And I mean, and Virginia Giuffre even put out more names in relationship to the whole Epstein situation.
Yeah,
the big name that we all think of is, of course, Alan Dershowitz.
But there's also George Mitchell, there is Jean-Luc Brunel, and Glenn Dubin, all of which are high-profile individuals, from former senators to lawyers to modeling scouts and just billionaire degenerates.
Yeah.
So, yeah. I mean, if they took down Prince Andrew, I would be looking over my shoulder if I were the other three. But I think this is great. I think the legacy of Jeffrey Epstein needs to be torn down in its entirety. And I really hope that all people that have been named, and if there's proof that they were part and parcel to the abuse that happened, I want them all to go down, whether it's Trump, the Clintons, Chris Tucker, whoever. I want them all going down because at the end of the day, what happened here was torture, slavery, and rape.
Yeah. I mean, let's get rid of our American-centric mind for just a moment. This is probably the biggest authority figure that could have gone.
Yeah. I mean, pretty much. I mean, especially given how this is international.
Yeah.
Like, this was probably the biggest authority figure that could have gone down that we know of that was named. I mean, there could be bigger names that have yet to be named that could eventually go down, but this is the biggest one.
Yeah, because this is the remainder of the ancient monarch.
Yeah, like so the monarchy is pretty much dead in a lot of areas of the world, particularly the Western world.
Yeah, but this is the only remainder of the monarchy left in modern civilization. So seeing a member of that class go down, it's huge.
It is pretty huge, and this is coming off the heels of Queen Elizabeth's ghoulish Nazi husband dying. Swear that man looks like a fucking ghoul from Fallout.
No. What was the joke that you said earlier that if there was anybody that proves the existence of adrenochrome, it was him?
No, that's Kenneth Copeland.
Oh,
no,
right.
Kenneth Copeland.
I'm pretty sure. Well, him too, but I'm pretty sure you said.
I probably have said it.
You have said it about the prince.
Yeah, the prince is definitely true, but Kenneth Copeland, that man looks like a fucking demon. If you have ever seen a picture of Kenneth Copeland, I swear to God, he is quintessential proof that if there is Satan and he walks among us, it is him. Kenneth Copeland is a fucking demon. Look at that man's eyes and tell me that is not Hellspawn incarnate. Look up a picture of Kenneth Copeland. I'm not pulling him up because he's fucking terrifying.
No. Even better. Look at the
interview.
The interview with Entertainment. Is it today or tonight? E.T.
Look
at the interview with E.T. and
the way he looks into the cameras is honestly just terrifying.
Especially when he gets mad. But let's get away from this because this is not relevant at all.
Okay, from demons and ghouls to monsters like Prince Andrew.
There we go.
But
we brought it back.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is pretty good. I'm really happy for Virginia Giuffre for her to get some form of closure and justice for what was basically something that dominated half her life. Like, she's in her 30s. This happened when she was 17. So this has been weighing down on her for her entire adult life. And I think it's really good and really empowering that a victim of someone so powerful is able to get some form of justice.
Yeah. At the end of the day, while dunking on this pathetic excuse of a fake human being should be our laughingstock at this point, we also do need to relay some condolences towards the victor of this sentence.
Yeah, I mean, her life, I mean, I cannot imagine the amount of pain and suffering she's endured, not just from the trauma of having to have first gone through it and then admitting it multiple times, but then the subsequent harassment and coercion that people have tried to put upon her to try and get her to dismiss the case, the amount of derision she's publicly endured from powerful men across the world who are all trying to basically scramble and distance themselves from behaviors that they all have been culpable for.
I mean, remember, this is essentially the crime of the century.
Yeah, it really is one of those crimes of centuries. I mean, it feeds into a lot of known conspiracy theories that a lot of people have about rich and powerful people leading destructive sex cults that prey on minors and prey on just people that are vulnerable. Like, Jenna Giuffre was preyed on because she needed money because she was not doing well financially. I don't want to say she was poor because I don't think that was the exact language, but she was a teenager that needed money, which is something that a lot of people can really relate to. A lot of people really need to understand that things like human trafficking come from when people are desperate, and that desperation is taken advantage of to its like nth degree.
Yeah.
Like being trapped into forms of human trafficking and slavery comes from preying on desperate people who are down on their luck, who need the resources to continue living a barely functioning normal life because poverty or anything close to poverty is devastating in this country.
Yeah. And of course, it wasn't made clear to any extent if she would be receiving the money. Of course, it's been revealed that the charity of her choice will be receiving the money. But she deserves that.
She does, for all of the pain and suffering that she's endured.
Yeah.
And
honestly,
for all the pain and suffering that she will continue to endure.
I mean,
because this, unfortunately, will define her for the rest of her life.
Yeah, and also just other people in power who will still go after her because she listed 4 other names. Like, you've seen how Alan Dershowitz has responded to her on camera.
Yeah, I mean, the fact that the BBC, after the Ghislaine Maxwell trial, let that pathetic piece of human garbage prowls around on BBC just completely deriding her was absolutely shameful. And we know that he's going to do it again and again and again until he's either caught, found guilty, settles out of court, or dies.
Yeah.
But
our condolences go to Virginia Giuffre.
And to the many other victims of Prince Andrew and the many other victims of just the entire Epstein sex just trafficking. I don't even know how to describe it with appropriate words. Just
but
all of the victims for this tragedy.
In reality, I think this is our first W of this whole conspiracy.
Like second.
No, I wouldn't even consider that because she hasn't even sentenced yet. So that's why I say that. This is our first solid W that we can confirm is happening. The Ghislaine Maxwell trial, while led to a guilty verdict, we still don't have a sentencing. This ended in concrete material loss at the expense of Prince Andrew.
Yes.
So that's why I claim this as the first victory of this whole crime.
Yeah, and hopefully it will be the beginning of many other victories.
And hell, it could lead to a domino effect of it finally being appropriate to go after leadership.
Yeah, and I just hope this is something that resonates with victims of sexual assault and abuse, because it's painful, it's embarrassing, it's depressing, it wreaks havoc across your mind. I can speak from personal experience as well as knowing the personal experiences of many other friends and acquaintances of mine that it's not something that you want to go through, and it's not something you would wish upon another person. And so I'm really glad that this happened and that that we're seeing consequences being brought forth.
Again, this is the first victory. We cannot let this momentum subdue.
We absolutely cannot. And we must continue to show support for the victims of not just the Epstein scandal, but for any forms of sexual assault, from victims that we've seen come out through the Me Too movement to just people within your own personal lives that come out. We are still seeing to this day many people coming out about abuse that has come out to them. I believe, what was it, the partner for Sky Does Minecraft got exposed, and YouTube comedian Gus Johnson, his ex-partner, came out about it. Like, it's still happening ongoing.
Oh yeah, Me Too has never ended. In fact, Me Too shouldn't even be considered like having an end point. It was the mountain that we've had to traverse in order to make this socially acceptable.
Yeah, and while we've seen many different uproars, from uproars within Hollywood to uproars within esports and general internet streaming culture, we're going to continue to see it all over the world, and we must keep supporting the victims every time. Obviously, you would want to make sure that you feel comfortable having enough information to make a judgment about it, but in the face of overwhelming evidence, you always should definitely support the victim. And obviously, even if you don't necessarily believe them, don't throw vitriol and hatred at them. If you're skeptical, keep that to yourself. If someone asks you, just say you don't have an opinion. But the last thing you would want to do is contribute to the harmful discourse that is surrounding victims of sexual assault and rape. Unlike some content creators a certain destiny. But moving
All right.
on. Moving on. Our last segment that we have, and our final segment, is about the Freedom Convoy. Now,
in our previous segment about the Canadian Freedom Convoy, we pretty much took a very comedic approach to making fun of them, but now they have done extreme damage to the Canadian economy. And our opinion has changed from mockery to absolute contempt.
yeah, I mean, this is, once again, for those of you that don't know, the Canadian Freedom Convoy is basically a massive protest from a group of far-right and conservative truckers who refuse to get vaccinated. This is a group of truckers that have to be vaccinated because they do work across the United States-Canadian border. 90% of truckers that do those routes are vaccinated. So this is about 10% of them. Like, by no means the majority.
Yeah.
But they have been basically driving all across Canada in protest about the vaccine mandates, believing that their bodily autonomy is being infringed upon and that their freedoms are being taken away from them. And this obviously has become a huge culture war issue, as vaccines and vaccine hesitancy and anti-mandates have been a huge culture war issue across the world. I mean, we've seen it across the world. We've seen it in France, we've seen it in Russia, we've seen it in Australia, we see it here in the States, we see it in Brazil. It's happening everywhere.
Yeah, which it's very strange to see this outside of the US, and this most likely is a lead over moving into Canada.
Yeah.
But it's really strange because, remind me again, there's a specific freedom I'm thinking of. It's what's the difference between positive and negative freedoms again?
I believe positive freedom is the freedom to do something, while negative freedom is the freedom to have something not done to you.
Okay. Yeah, so my opinion is like positive freedom is like a very like cemented part of American culture.
Yeah.
So it's very strange to see this outside of America, like this super like patriotic freedom sentiment being seen outside of the US.
Yeah.
So to see this here in full force, I believe that this is a complete beat over from the Trump.
Oh, it definitely is. I mean, I've been hearing stories for a while that up in Canada, in provinces such as Manitoba and Alberta, that the conservative movement has very much been kind of thriving over there. I mean, we're seeing it with musicians like what is it? Something Calhoun? Tom Calhoun? Or is it Tom McDonald?
Tom McDonald.
There's Tom McDonald, there's something Calhoun. I mean, we have people, Adam Calhoun, we have Stephen Crowder, we have a bunch of Canadian far-right people that are just gaining prominence all across, and this seems to be just another extension of that, where we are seeing this, and let it be known, this was astroturfed as fuck by Americans. The American conservative movement was definitely funneling money into this. I mean, I'm pretty sure there has been evidence of Trump affiliates funneling money into this, because this is a fucking psyop. This is the definition of psyop. This was definitely artificially grown, artificially pushed to push a wider narrative of vaccine hesitancy and anti-mandate.
Now, when you say psyop, of course, the immediate thing that comes to mind is, oh, these guys aren't Canadians, they're Americans. But what you're saying is that this has been influenced from the bottom up, from American political thought leaders to convince Canadians of this.
Not. I wouldn't say it's something to convince Canadians of. I believe the Canadians are, but I'm saying that American conservatives are very much in tune with their Canadian brethren, and I believe this is a joint movement of American conservatives pushing rhetoric that the Canadian conservatives can then parrot themselves. Not in a way that they're being tricked into believing it. I believe they believe it themselves, but it's easier to get help from American conservatives when you're Canadian conservative.
Yeah, I just wanted to clear that up, because when someone says psyop, the of course immediate go-to is is, of course, oh, these are just Americans in Canadians' clothing.
Yeah, no. And I feel like the term psyop is kind of misused
And
a lot.
that's exactly why I wanted to make that.
Yeah, because what a psyop actually is that it's a selective group of information and events used to influence the emotions, motives, and reasoning of groups, individuals, governments, and organizations.
Another example would be Ukraine. There were Russian psyops in there.
Yeah. Or there's some that are more conspiratorial than others, like Operation Northwoods. But anyways, this is a psyop in the sense that this is very much supposed to, one, make people think that the anti-vax, anti-mandate sentiment within Canada is far larger than it actually is. Reminder, this is 10% of what the truckers in Canada actually represent. 90% are not for it. A lot of this is taking place in the province of Ottawa, which is, of course,
the capital, right?
Did I say province? Province of Ontario, the capital city of Ottawa, which is a very liberal area. And it's very much trying to convince people that, oh, maybe all of Canada isn't as liberal as we thought. No, Canada's still pretty damn. And so, no, what is it? 2/3 of all residents in Ottawa wanted the fucking emergency powers to go through so Prime Minister Trudeau can actually get rid of these truckers.
Yeah. Which we really need to dive into why this has become such a big issue and why these protesters are making a significant impact on Canada. It's because Canada is losing hundreds of millions or billions?
Millions.
Hundreds of millions of dollars in lost movement in the economy. And
that's mainly because the truckers are blocking the border.
Yeah.
Which, you may think, oh, how are they blocking the border? Do you know how big a semi-truck is?
Oh, yeah. A semi can range from anywhere from, 30 to 50.
Yeah, and there's... I wouldn't say it's a stretch to say that there's at least a couple thousand people involved in this, right?
Oh, yeah.
And so that's a lot of people. That's enough to shut down some borders.
Oh, yeah, without a doubt.
Yeah, especially because it's not just truckers. It's the truckers, it's their families, it's their friends, it's conservative sycophants, it's far-right people, it's Nazis, white supremacists. It's the whole group of people. It's basically, in some ways, it's another Charlottesville, except this one has far better optics.
Yeah. Now, the big controversy to come with this was Prime Minister Justin Trudeau's response to this. And that would be him pushing the big red button.
Yeah. To preface, what happened leading up to this is originally police officers were deployed in many different areas to try and break up the convoy, try to, stop the protest. But, hogs being hogs and pigs being pigs, the police were like, we kind of like them. And really didn't do much to actually stop the protest. In some ways, yes, they inconvenienced them. Like in some areas, they blocked off bathrooms, which made it so going to the bathroom was impossible, meaning areas literally just smelled like shit. And others have tried to infiltrate the protesters and do counter-protest and try to take some things down. But the majority of the police force in a lot of areas has been pretty ineffectual. In fact, the police chief of the Ottawa Police Department resigned in the midst of all of this, leaving the police leaderless. Which really shows that things aren't going well. And another issue is that so unlike the United States, where individual governors can send in the National Guard to stop protests, Prime Minister cannot call in the Royal Canadian Mounted Service? Mounties. The Mounties. He can't call in the Mounties unless he gets consent from the premiers of the provinces.
Yeah.
And so far, at least two premiers, one in Quebec and I believe the other in Alberta, deny the Mounties being pushed through. Which means that Trudeau now has to access emergency powers, which has then led to a lot of discourse, specifically on leftist Twitter, about what those emergency powers should entail. Now, on one side, people are saying, call in the Mounties, break them out with the military. The other side is that could extrajudicially freeze the assets of the protesters and starve them out that way.
Yeah.
Now, there are pros and cons to each of them. On one hand, the military is a more overt show of force, so it shows a very antagonistic confrontation, which can give sympathy to the protesters, and it can lead to a loss of life depending on how badly things break down.
And not just loss of life of protesters, loss of life of civilians still stuck in the city.
Yeah, and of course, obviously, loss of life to the Mounties, but they signed up for that. That's kind of part and parcel of what they do.
Yeah.
And so those are like downsides, but the upsides is that one,
it gets rid of them.
It gets rid of them. Two, it's overt show of force, meaning it's not in any way covert, and it is something that you can see. The other aspect is cutting as extrajudicially freezing their assets, which comes with a lot of pros and cons. Pros being one, far more peaceful.
Yeah.
Two, it's less likely to cause overt shows of violence because it's not anything that would, would look like an inciting incident. Another would be that it doesn't in any way make the protesters look positive if they were removed, because it would look like they're walking away with defeat.
Now, the cons to this can be perceived as, and is, a massive infringement of people's freedoms, and it is quite literally the government controlling their assets.
Yes.
But now I think we should dive into the nuances of each option and why this was probably the best outcome to come. And with bringing in the military, of course, we'll go over the cons again of loss of life. That is, and also potential for martyrs to come.
Yeah.
That will only provide validation to their movement. And let's face it, these guys are not at all.
No, these are first of all, for some people that wanted to believe that these are all working class stiffs, no. These are business owners. These are small and large business owners. If you want to get in all the leftist terminology, I would say that they are the petite bourgeoisie. They are not in any way the common man. They are not the common person. They are, in fact, just business owners and other just not wealthy, wrong to say wealthy, middle class to upper middle class, people that live comfortably, people that can afford to be away from their homes and jobs for days or weeks on end. That's not working class people. Now, mind you, that's not to say everyone there isn't working class. There absolutely is, most definitely, working class people that are amongst members of the convoy. But let's not delude ourselves into thinking this is some type of working class proletariat uprising like we're all hoping.
Yeah, essentially, they're practicing their right to protest, but they are protesting. Their act of protesting is extremely immoral, and that's what separates it from other protests we've seen.
Yeah, and yeah, I would say pretty much that it's difficult for me personally to sympathize because, for one, I think you should get the vaccine. I think mandates should be in place because we should be getting rid of this virus as fast as possible because it is still very much killing people across the world. So, yeah. But I do want to get into the pros and cons of freezing assets.
Now, for not the pros and cons, the nuances.
The nuances. So, for one, Canada is pretty liberal.
Yeah.
Far more liberal than I would say more liberal than the United States is. And so, the idea of freezing assets doesn't necessarily sound like a bad idea probably to your average Canadian. I mean, a lot of people are probably in support of this in Canada.
Yeah.
But, as an American, and particularly while we are young, we did grow up in a post-Patriot Act era of America. And so, I would like to say this. As someone that has grown up in the post-Patriot Act era of America, I have lived through a time where emergency powers were given, were stated to be for only a relatively short period of time, and then never rescinded and only expanded. And this all culminated, obviously, into many whistleblower shenanigans with Edward Snowden, with Chelsea Manning, with Julian Assange, and with others exposing U.S. intelligence, U.S. intelligence, whether it's abroad or at home, massively overstepping their boundaries in terms of infringing on the rights and civil liberties of citizens. And that was all coming from emergency powers being given back in 2001. I'm very much afraid that Canada would go through something similar, where Justin Trudeau, he has been given these emergency powers, and even though it's always been there, the fact that it's now being used means that people will be more likely to want to use it in the future. And the reason why this is a problem is because, as you know, we are leftists, we are socialists. And thus, we do eventually believe in some form of general strikes. We do believe in what would hopefully be a proletarian revolution that would lead to the workers obtaining the means of production instead of the business class, and that hopefully that we would forever be able to change the dominant economic ideology and economic system of the world. But imagine if those protests and those movements could never get off their feet because the government starved you of all your funds before it ever began. That's pretty scary. Because imagine if it's not, let's say we take away the whole leftist proletarian revolution. Let's just say a more right-wing government came into power within Canada, and they decided to do some right-wing, they decided to implement their own Muslim ban of sorts or whatever. Probably not going to happen. But let's say for a hypothetical sake that did happen. And you had a bunch of people protesting massively against this. They think this is an outrage, a massive breach of what they believe to be Canadians are all about, all these different things. And what if those protests were completely stopped by a right-wing government just sapping the funds out of all of those protesters, claiming that the economic damage those protests are doing is enough for them to warrant to do this, which, mind you, that's the point. Whether it's a far right, a regular right wing, a centrist, a liberal, left wing, far leftist protest, the point of protesting is to cause some form of disturbance, usually economic disturbance, because that's what gets the most people noticing. Blocking people from going to work, blocking people from entering businesses, those things cause disruptions, and those are usually economic disruptions, and it gets you to see what the people are talking about. And so, even though I vehemently disagree with this entire freedom convoy, I think this is very much a far-right psyop. I think it's absolutely stupid for people to be anti-vax and anti-mandate. I don't like the idea of silencing them by stealing all of their money extrajudicially and then just shuttling them off. Because, while yes, they are fascists, the measures used to take them down can very much be turned around and used against leftists, or even liberals, which is the nuance of this situation. On one hand, it's far more peaceful, it's far less likely to cause martyrs, it's far more likely for people to leave without any acts of violence being done, but it does push things in a slightly more authoritarian way versus a military crackdown, which is more overt, which makes the government look more like bad guys, which, I mean, is another point about protest. Another point of protest is that when you are met with force by the state is supposed to look bad. Why do you think some of the most iconic photos from the civil rights movement are people being brutalized with fire hoses and being beaten by police officers and attacked by dogs? That's the point. Those pictures are supposed to infuriate you because seeing the use of state power against its own citizens who are protesting is supposed to make you sympathetic to the protesters. And mind you, yes, these are fascists, and yes, that would mean people feeling sympathy for fascists. It's a matter of consistency, of what we believe in our principles.
You pretty much hit every nail on the head there.
I very much don't like this freedom convoy, and I very much don't want violence to happen, but I am worried about what happens when that slight authoritarian push happens, it opens the door for a lot of ugliness. I mean, America and Canada, yes, are two different countries, but they are very much influencing each other on a cultural level. I mean, there was what was it? There was an open letter written by two premiers of provinces in Canada and 16 U.S. senators to President Joe Biden and Prime Minister Justin Trudeau about the Freedom Convoy, which very much shows that the United States and Canada, on a lot of political issues, have a lot of overlap and influence with each other. And like I said, particularly on the right, there are a lot of Canadians that have a lot of sway within American political discourse, a la Stephen Crowder and Tom MacDonald. That's his name, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah,
It's
I wince at the fact, especially living in a post-Patriot Act America.
Yeah. Especially because, again, positive freedoms are so ingrained in our culture and so seeped into our brains through propaganda and such
Yeah.
that, again, Canadians were perfectly fine with this happening. If this happened in America, the outcry would be beyond comprehension.
Oh, yeah. Americans, rightfully so, would lose their collective shit over this. And mind you, I'm not going to sit here and say that that if the Canadian citizenry are all for it and they fully support their leadership doing it, I'm not really going to sit here and say, like, oh, we should overturn the will of the people. If the people want that to happen, I mean, that's them making their own deal with the devil. And I mean, I'm all for the citizens' rights for self-determination in terms of where they want the direction of the country to go. And if most people want this to go that way, then I mean, I'm not going to say you should. I'm not going to stop you from doing it, but I very much am advising that you should reconsider.
Yeah.
As an American who lives in a post-Patriot Act America, where there were a lot of people back then, such as Bernie Sanders, warning about the government overreach that would come from such a thing like the Patriot Act. And here we are, about 20 years later, still feeling the effects of that decision. All right. Yeah. Anything else you want to add on to
again,
the whole Freedom March?
You hit everything on the head. I have nothing to add.
Yeah. It's not last week, it was 2 weeks ago, right? We treated it pretty comically because at the time it was pretty comical, but now
oh my
there's
god, this has lasted 2 weeks? Oh my god.
Yeah, no, it has been 2 weeks. It started in January.
Oh, that's right. We only talked about Amir Lot last week.
Yeah, no, it started back in January.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
Oh god. I want to formally apologize to the rest of the world from our brain-dead conservative seeping into your ears.
Remember, America's biggest export is its bigotry and stupidity. Because we are the biggest pop culture influencer in a lot of the world. And so thus a lot of our regressive views get pushed across the world as well.
Oh.
Yep. Anyways, I think that's everything.
Yep, that's everything.
So I want to thank you all for tuning in. Once again, this was another fun, successful episode, and thankfully no audio issues 2 weeks in a row.
And no doomerism.
And no doomerism as well. This was really fun. I once again want to thank you all for stopping in and commenting. And once again, you can follow and subscribe and like all of our content.
Yeah, very exciting to get our first Twitch chat, so that's pretty cool.
I mean, we've had Twitch chats before, but we got another one for the first time in a while, which is pretty cool.
Most of them have come through YouTube. I think you're right, but I think those were like in the first few episodes. Most of them has come from YouTube.
Yeah, and what was I going to say? If people have been commenting in Twitter chat, we love you. We can't see Twitter chat. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
But yeah, and if you guys like the content, definitely consider subscribing to the Patreon. It's linked within the description of the stream. It will be in the description for when you see it on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Player.fm, wherever you listen to your podcast. It'll be in the description there. It's in the chat. So yeah, if you're looking forward to other content from us, you can definitely look at our Patreon.
All right.
You can like and comment and follow and subscribe at our various social medias. If you look at all my links link that is in our Twitter and in our Instagram, you can find us there. And yeah, Thank you very much.
Right, and you can catch us every Wednesday at oh my God, 7 p.m. That's the first time I've screwed that up. Wow. 7 p.m. Eastern, 4 p.m. Pacific. I'm your host, Sovereign.